Well, today we're diving headfirst into one of those pivotal but actually incredibly rewarding moments in Japanese. Genki Lesson 6.
That's right. And for this deep dive, our mission isn't just about, walking you through the rules. We really want to unpack the incredibly versatile T form.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It really is. This isn't about rote memorization or just like ticking a grammar box off a list. It's really about unlocking a whole new level of expression. Understanding, too, in Japanese. I mean, when you master the T form, you suddenly gain this ability to make polite requests, describe sequences of events really clearly.
Like telling a story.
Exactly. And asking for and giving permission, setting boundaries, explaining why you did something, and even offering a helping hand. All with, a natural grace. It's like a linguistic superpower
A
almost.
superpower. I like that. So, what can you expect from our deep dive today? Well, prepare for some serious aha moments, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
We're going to break down what might initially seem like this complex maze of conjugations and uses into clear, actionable insights, stuff you can actually use right away. We'll walk through loads of practical examples, explore those tricky, nuanced situations where the T form really shines.
Yeah, the context matters so much.
Right. And discover why this form, even though it feels challenging at first, really does become second nature with enough exposure. Now, you're already familiar with Genki structure, so we won't spend time on the textbook's background.
Nope, straight into the good stuff.
But we will drill down into the specific topics of this lesson. Detailed, real-world examples that, hopefully, bring the grammar to life.
Let's do it. Time to master this essential building block.
Okay, let's unpack this foundational piece. We're starting right at the core. T-form conjugation.
Yeah.
Why is mastering this specific form just so incredibly crucial? I mean, it feels like it pops up absolutely everywhere.
It absolutely does, and you've really hit on its core importance there. The T form isn't just, another verb ending you learn and then maybe forget about later.
Right.
It is truly a foundational grammar point. It serves as a prerequisite, really, for countless future expressions and forms in Japanese.
Like a gateway.
Exactly. Think of it as the master key, the one that unlocks many, many other doors in Japanese grammar. Without a really solid, almost automatic grasp of the T form, moving forward in your studies just becomes incredibly difficult.
I could see that.
Because you're going to be using this form constantly, all the time. In combination with other grammar structures from this point on, it really is the connective tissue of the language in a way.
The connective tissue. That's a fantastic way to put it, the master key. Okay, but before we dive into the specifics, the conjugations, all those delightful little shifts, let's just briefly revisit the dictionary form of Japanese verbs. Can you give us a quick refresher on why that's our starting point, just for grounding?
Of course. So you'll remember that all Japanese verbs in their dictionary form, that's their plain unconjugated form, they always end in a U sound.
Right.
That includes endings like ku, su, tu, nu, mu, bu, guru. There's even a rarer do, though you don't see it much in early Genki.
Okay.
And this final syllable, that U sound, is absolutely crucial. It's the part that you actually manipulate, you transform it when you conjugate into the T form. So identifying it correctly is step one. Always.
Right. And Genki, as you know, simplifies things by grouping verbs into U verbs and Ru verbs. Now, a lot of instructors and native speakers, too, often call these Godan verbs and Ichidan verbs.
That's the more traditional linguistic terminology, yeah.
We don't need to get bogged down in the etymology of those terms right now, but it's just good to be aware of them. For our purposes today, just know that Godan verbs are generally those ending in U, tu, ru, no, bu, su, ku, ugu.
Basically the ones with the diverse endings.
Exactly. These are what Genki calls U verbs. And yeah, they have a few different conjugation patterns for the T form. It can feel like a lot of rules at first. I remember that feeling.
Oh, definitely.
But there's actually a really smart way to group them, isn't there? That simplifies things quite a bit.
Indeed. The key with Godan verbs is really understanding their phonetic groupings. That can simplify memorization from what might seem like, 9 separate rules down to just a few core patterns.
Okay, let's hear them.
Right. Let's start with the first group. Verbs that end in o, wu, o, wu, u. For these ones, you drop their final syllable, the u, ru, or ru, and you add ate, pronounced chit.
With that little pause, right?
Exactly. That distinctive little glottal stop or pause, almost like a quick catch in your throat before the T sound. This is often called the sounds like a pause group.
Okay. Can you give us some concrete examples for that group?
Certainly. Take ease wuto, to sing. That transforms into uto,
Uta. Okay.
or matsu, to wait, which becomes
Luto.
boy. And noru, meaning to ride or to get on, becomes mat. See the pattern? This group makes that distinctive hus sound.
Yeah, I hear it.
So if you hear that quick, almost cut-off sound before the te, you're likely dealing with one of these verbs ending in u, su, or ru. Think of a verb like kairu, to return home. Try conjugating it in your head.
Okay. Kairu kaite.
Exactly. You're on the right track.
Perfect. Okay, what's the next group?
Then you have the next group, verbs ending in mu, nu, or mm. These verbs also drop their final syllable,
Okay.
but they add instead. This creates more of a nasal N sound, almost like your nose is involved, you know?
Nande. Right, like nomu.
Precisely. So nomu, to drink, transforms into hanet.
Nande. Makes sense.
Shinu, to die, becomes num. Shinu. Hopefully you won't need that one too often.
Let's hope not.
And onwasobu, to play or hang out, becomes han. If you think about the M and N sounds in nu, bu, they kind of link to that voiced enda ending. It often involves the nasal passage. It feels like a pretty natural phonetic shift.
Yeah, it does. Actually.
This is our sounds like a nasal N group.
That connection to the nasal sound definitely makes it more intuitive than just memorizing a random rule. Okay, what's our third major group for these godan verbs?
Our third group involves verbs ending in ara, ku, and u. These are a little different. They change the U vowel sound to an I sound.
Oh.
So verbs ending in R become R,
Right.
while verbs ending in R become R.
Ide.
Ide. So voice versus unvoiced.
Exactly. So kiku, to listen, turns into ki, Kate.
Kichi.
And esogu, to hurry, becomes ai.
So ide.
So while they don't follow that simple glottal stop or nasal pattern like the others, it's helpful that these two kind of mirror each other with that I sound replacing the U. This is our sounds like I group.
Right. Okay, that covers most of them. Is there one more? And finally, for go-down verbs, we have the standalone. Almost the easy one in the bunch, actually.
Oh, good.
Verbs ending in su. These simply become shite.
Shite. Okay.
For example, hanasu, to speak, becomes hair, hanashite.
Hanashite. Nice and simple.
So when you group them by these sound changes, you've got the ete, the tende, and the ted patterns, you really only need to remember 4 different categories.
Instead of 9 separate endings.
Exactly. It vastly simplifies what initially seems like this really confusing number of ways to conjugate these U verbs or go-down verbs.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. Pattern recognition.
It's all about pattern recognition. Now, moving on to ichidan verbs, which Genki calls ru verbs. These are generally much simpler.
Okay, simpler is good.
If a verb ends in ear or arrow, it typically just drops the yun and directly adds eopede.
Ah, okay. So no changing the stem or anything.
Nope, just swap ru for k.
This sounds much more straightforward. Give us some examples there.
They are indeed. So miru, to look, becomes my might. Might. To eat becomes might, taberu. To eat becomes juoso tabete.
Tabete.
Neru, to sleep, becomes nete.
Mete.
And miru, to wake up or get up, becomes okait.
Okite. Yeah, that is much simpler. That consistent rule makes them pretty easy once you know it's an ichidan verb.
Exactly, once you've identified them correctly.
Ah, but there's always a twist, isn't there? The catch, the crucial exceptions. This is where learners, myself included back in the day, can really trip up.
Yes.
Because some verbs look like ichidan verbs. They end in iru or eru, but they're actually sneaky godan verbs and follow those more complex rules we just talked about.
This is a critical point, and yeah, it's a common stumbling block. But the good news is, if you've already encountered and memorized these exceptions for other forms, like the masu form,
Right, they're usually the same ones.
they are the same ones. They apply here too. So for instance, iru, to enter,
Looks like an ichidan.
looks like one, but it's godan, hashiro. To run, iru, to need, not the verb to be, kairu, to return home.
Oh, kairu again.
Yes, kairu, to limit. Kiru, to cut. Shabaru, to chat. Shiru, to know. And seijiru, to interrupt. Those are all godan verbs despite the ending.
So kairu, for example, it doesn't become kaite.
No, absolutely not kaite. It becomes hiru, kaiga. following that ear rule we mentioned first.
Right, the little pause one.
Exactly. It's a bit of a memorization hurdle, definitely, but these are really high-frequency verbs. You'll use them all the time, so you'll get plenty of practice.
Okay, so watch out for those wolves in sheep's clothing. Then we have the true mavericks, the irregular verbs.
Yeah.
As the name suggests, you just got to memorize these individually.
Yep. Pure memorization.
Luckily, there are only 3 main ones for the T form that you'll bump into at this stage.
That's right. You've got kuru, to come, which becomes kite.
Okay.
Suru, sururu, becomes kite, kite.
Shite. Wait, that's the same as the su verb ending, isn't it?
It is. Ha hanasu becomes hey hanashite, and suru also becomes a shite. Good catch. It's irregular because its dictionary form is unique, but its T form happens to match the su verb pattern.
Ah, okay. Got it. And the last one.
The last one, and probably the most famous irregular, is ai, iku, to go. It becomes ai, ite.
Ite. Now that is weird. It ends in aiku too, so you'd expect ayite, like kiku became kayite.
Exactly. That's why it's irregular. Even though it ends in I, which normally implies the ate conjugation, it behaves like that first group, the I verbs, taking that small I before the I.
Huh. Any reason why?
Well, some linguists suggest it might stem from older pronunciations, or maybe just its incredibly high frequency of use sort of wore it into this pattern. It's a little historical linguistic nugget you're mastering there.
Okay, so kuru kite, suru shite, iku ite. Got it.
It's a key one to nail down because, I mean, to go is such a fundamental action.
Definitely. Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. And you get some fantastic news, right? Something that makes all that initial effort doubly rewarding. Tell our listener about the hidden bonus.
This is probably one of the most satisfying connections in early Japanese grammar, I think.
Yeah.
Once you master the T form, you've actually already mastered the informal past tense for verbs.
No way. Really?
Yes. The conjugation rules are identical. Absolutely identical. You simply replace the final T with kakja.
Oh.
Or if the T form ended in de, you replace that with ot, da.
Wow. So all that work learning the te, ate, ID, shite patterns?
Pays off twice. That initial challenge of learning the T form truly pays off in spades. It streamlines your path to expressing past actions informally, which you do all the time.
That's brilliant. So it's not really learning 2 sets of rules. It's one rule with 2 different endings depending on tense. I imagine that's a huge relief for many learners. That makes the effort seem much more worthwhile.
It really does.
Can you walk us through a few quick examples of that transformation, T form to informal past?
Absolutely. Let's take some we've used. Itat, which means sing and then, or please sing,
Right.
becomes itat, meaning sang,
Utata.
wait, and then, or please wait, becomes mulat, waited,
Mate.
listen nande, drink, and then, or please, transforms into chita, listened,
Yeah.
and nonde, drink, and then becomes nonda, drank.
Nonda, si. De becomes da.
Exactly. The core transformation from the dictionary form is the same. It makes it an incredibly efficient learning process, actually. If you can confidently produce the T form, you are more than halfway to using the informal past tense fluently.
All right, now that we've really hammered out the core conjugation and that amazing past tense connection, let's put the T form to work. This is where you really start to see its incredible versatility and why it's so fundamental. First up, making polite requests. Using that familiar CLF form.
Yeah, this is probably one of the first uses people learn, but it's important to note the nuance here first. The T form, just on its own, without the kudasai,
Right.
can actually act as a direct request, though generally it's not highly polite. It can even be like an invitation.
Oh, so?
Well, if you just say shutat to a friend, it implies sing, or maybe go on sing. It's quite direct.
Okay.
And you've probably heard the super common phrase, shotomat.
Oh, yeah, all the time. Wait a sec.
Exactly. Please wait a moment. But in a casual, direct way. It's perfectly fine among friends or family, but yeah, you wouldn't use just mat with your boss or someone you just met.
Right, so to add that layer of politeness, that respectful please that's appropriate in most situations, you just add ju kudasai after the T form.
That's it. T form plus kudasai. This is your absolute go-to for polite requests in Japanese, and it's incredibly versatile.
So give us some examples, like if you're in a room and it's a bit dark.
You'd say, Denki o tsukete kudasai. Please turn on the light. Tsukuru becomes tsukete.
Okay. What about asking someone to take a seat?
For asking someone to sit down, it's suete kudasai. Suaru becomes suete. Imagine you're hosting someone, you want to offer them a seat. That's the phrase.
Perfect. And maybe something slightly more complex like, please take a shower.
That would be shawa or abit kudasai. The verb is abiru, te formabaitu.
Right. Or if you're trying to get information, like someone's birthday.
You'd politely ask, tanjubi or oshiete kudasai. Please tell me your birthday. Notice how even oshieru, to tell or to teach, gets transformed into its T form, oshiete.
Yeah, that applies across the board. And it works in public settings too, right? Like guiding someone.
Absolutely. If you were directing someone, maybe a confused tourist at a train station, you might say, Denshan ni note kudasai. Please get on the train. Noru becomes note. Or, in a classroom setting, a teacher would very commonly instruct students to write an answer with kote o kaite kudasai. Please write the answer. Kaku becomes kite.
That structure really is fundamental.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier how formality can shift even in one conversation.
Exactly. You might hear one friend casually say, oshite, like, tell me or teach me. Very direct.
Mm-hmm.
And then later in that same conversation, maybe asking for a bigger favor or just being a bit more careful, the same person might use the more polite form, oshite kudasai, please tell me.
Okay.
It just shows how even casual chats can switch between formality levels, and the T form with kudasai is absolutely key to navigating that sort of social dance smoothly.
That's a great example of how context really dictates usage in Japanese. Okay, so beyond simple requests, where else does the T form really connect sentences for us? How does it link ideas?
That's a fantastic lead-in, actually, because the T form is truly your bridge for describing a sequence of events.
Right, doing one thing then another.
Precisely. It's how you connect multiple verbs in chronological order, showing that one action happens and then another follows. This chaining of actions is a very natural, very common way to describe things in Japanese.
And the tense.
Good question. What's interesting is that the tense of the entire sequence, whether it's present, future, or past, is actually determined only by the very last verb in the sentence.
So the T forms themselves don't carry tense.
Nope, they just link the actions. The final verb anchors the whole thing in time. It ties everything together quite neatly.
Can you give us some practical illustrations of that? Maybe a daily routine kind of example.
Of course. For instance, toshokan ni ite, benkyū shimasu. Literally, I go to the library and study.
Okay.
The first verb, ite, te form of iku, connects to the second action, the benkyū shimasu, which is present future tense. So the whole sequence is present future.
Got it. And for past tense?
If you're talking about something that happened yesterday, suka o kite tabamashita, I cut a watermelon and ate it.
So kite, from kiru, to cut, links to tabamashita, past tense of tabaru.
Exactly. Tabamashita is past tense, so the whole sequence cutting and eating is understood as past.
I can see how that's incredibly efficient. Instead of saying, first I did this, then I did that, you just chain them.
Exactly. You can use it for daily routines, like supane ite, uchi ikarimasu. I go to the supermarket and then go home.
Much smoother.
The T form really makes these sequential actions flow naturally and concisely. This chaining really highlights how Japanese often prefers this continuous flow of action. It's like painting a scene stroke by stroke rather than distinct separate clauses like you might often use in English.
Less fragmented.
Yeah, less about individual, completed acts and more about a progression. And it's used in fun, everyday dialogues, too. Imagine someone asks, Doku ni ita no? Where'd you go? And the reply is, Makudo na ruta de biu maku o tabete, mosu bagan ni ikimashita.
We ate a Big Mac at McDonald's and then went to Mossburger.
Exactly. It clearly lays out the sequence, even for a fast food adventure.
I love how flexible it is for storytelling, even simple stories. Okay, next up, the T form allows you to ask for and give permission. Another really common scenario in daily life. How do we form that?
Right. For this, you add "siptamoi desu" to the T form to give permission, or you add a question mark. Internationally, hitamori desu ka to ask for it.
Denmoi desu, okay?
This structure can literally translate to something like, "Is it good even if I do X?" but in practice, it's how you politely say, may I or can I?
Much more common than a direct can I, like in English, right?
Oh, much more common, much more natural for seeking or granting approval politely in Japanese.
So if you're wondering if you can open something, say a window,
You'd ask, 窓は開けてもいいですか? May I open the window? Using akeru's te form, 開けて.
Okay. Or if you want to sit down in someone's home.
座ってもいいですか? May I please sit down? Using 座る again.
right? What about asking to use someone's phone to make a call?
For asking if you can make a phone call, it's ですか? Using the te form of 電話する, which is 電話したい.
Got it. And you can combine ideas too, right? Using that sequence thing again.
Absolutely. Like,
Right.
ますyes, その前に昼ご飯を食べてもいいですか? May I have lunch before that?
Ah, that's really useful. Perfect for when you need to politely suggest, like, a change of plans or say you need to do something first.
Exactly. And it works for more complex social situations too, like asking if you can join in an event.
Oh, yeah, like a festival.
Indeed. For example, 12日で暑のし、お祭りに行って踊ってもいいですか? Can I go to the festival and dance, please? Notice the eat connecting to 踊ってもいいですか?
Sequence and permission together. Very cool.
Or a really common one with kids asking parents, ご飯の後にスクリームを食べてもいいですか? Please, can I eat ice cream after the meal?
Classic.
And in dialogue, asking for permission comes up totally naturally. When someone's ready to leave a party or a meeting, they might politely ask, 帰ってもいいですか? Well then, may I go home?
Using kate, the te form of kairu.
Exactly. It directly uses the permission structure and shows consideration for the host or group.
Okay, now for the flip side. Prohibiting activities. Telling someone they must not or cannot do something.
Right, the opposite of permission.
For this, you add fiva ikamazen to the te form. And this is a key pronunciation point, right?
Crucial point. The particle in this specific construction is always pronounced wa. Te habi ikamazen.
Iwa ikamazen. Got it. And this is a pretty strong prohibition.
Yes, it carries significant weight. This form is perfect for setting clear boundaries or stating rules. You see it a lot on signs, for example.
Like,
Very commonly, hashite wa ikamazen, you must not run. Using hashira's te form, hashite.
okay, makes sense in a hallway or something.
Or in a strict environment like a museum, hashin, tata wa ikamazen, you must not take photos. Toru becomes tori.
Right.
If you're directing traffic, maybe police instructions. Tamate wa ikamazen, you must not stop your vehicle. Tomato becomes tomet. It definitely conveys a sense of formal regulation.
What's fascinating here, though, is how context and tone can really shift its meaning, isn't it?
Absolutely.
While sight is often used formally for rules or serious warnings, it can also be used kind of playfully among friends. If the tone is right, like light and maybe sarcastic.
Exactly. Like being overly formal just to emphasize a point in a joking way. We saw this in one of the dialogues from our source material, remember? Where one friend playfully but firmly says, Kate wa ikmazen.
You must not go home. Yeah, clearly not a real rule, just don't leave yet.
Precisely. It indicates they don't want the other person to leave, using this strong form for humorous effect.
That's a perfect example of that flexibility. And didn't it happen again later?
It did. Later in that same dialogue, there's another instance. Sor wakiti wa ikmazen.
You must not ask that.
Right. Again, using the formal structure to set a boundary with the close friend, but in a joking, almost sarcastic manner. Like saying, that's off limits, or don't even go there.
It really emphasizes that while the grammar itself implies strict prohibition, the social context can totally transform its actual impact. Often used when you're kind of feigning seriousness.
Exactly right. Playful formality.
That playful use really highlights the cultural nuances. Okay, moving on. Another fundamental thing covered in this lesson is explaining reasons using arokara. How does kara function here?
Right. So when kara is used at the end of a sentence, it serves to provide a reason for whatever was just stated or implied. Because basically. Now, while it's grammatically correct, it's worth noting that this specific usage Kara tacked onto the very end of a sentence might sound a little less natural in general conversation compared to its more common use, which is using it as a conjunction between two clauses, like A Kara B, meaning because A happen, B happen. That structure is super common, and you'll definitely cover it later.
Okay. So this lesson focuses on the sentence ending insertion. When would you most naturally use that one?
It's most common when someone directly asks why, like a douchite, or the slightly more formal nuz.
And your answer is just the reason ending in Kara.
Exactly. You respond directly with the reason, ending it with shuka. For instance, if someone asks why you can't come to the party, you might just reply, because I'm busy.
Simple and direct.
Very. Or if you're explaining why you made a decision, ikukara, because I will go. Just stating your reason plainly.
Or declining something.
Yep. Sukujanai desu kara, because I do not like this. Again, very direct explanation.
The dialogue snippets you mentioned earlier really make this usage clear.
They really do. When someone was reluctant to share something personal, remember, they said, hazukashi desu kara, because I'm embarrassed.
Right explains the reluctance perfectly.
Directly explains the reason without needing a long sentence. And in that more playful, maybe slightly exasperated tone when someone was told they could go home.
Oh.
The reason given was sumaranai desu kara, because you're boring.
Ouch. But grammatically sound.
Haha, exactly. These examples just highlight how kara at the end gives that direct reason, often in a very conversational, responsive way.
Okay. And finally, for the T-form applications, we get to offering assistance using shamashuka. Now, wait, didn't we see sharo before, meaning shall we? Like an invitation.
You absolutely did. That's one meaning, can mean shall we, but, and this is key, in certain contexts, it clearly means shall I, or may I offer to.
So it's an offer of help from the speaker.
Exactly. The context makes the meaning clear. It distinguishes it from a let's do something together invitation.
Okay, and how is it formed again?
It's quite simple. You take the masu stem of a verb.
Which is the part before masu.
Right, like yomi from yomimasu, to read, or sukuri from sukurimasu, to make. And you just add hiri to that stem.
Got it. Stem plus mashuka.
So, for example, if you see someone struggling with, say, heavy bags, you might offer yu tetsudaimashu, meaning shall I help you, using the stem tetsudai from tetsudaimasu.
That's incredibly useful for just being considerate. What about offering to do something for someone, like reading to a child?
Precisely. If you offer to read a book for someone, maybe a child at bedtime, you'd say, Ono yomimashuka, shall I read a book, using the yomi stem.
Okay. Or offering to cook.
Yep. If you're feeling hospitable, maybe your friend looks hungry, you might offer, Yu wa no sukurimashuka, shall I make lunch? Using the sukuri stem. It's a very polite, proactive way to extend help.
This usage was shown really nicely in that polite interaction from the dialogue we keep mentioning right at the end.
Yes, exactly. Where one person offers help by asking, Nimmosumashuka ka?
Shall I carry your stuff luggage? Using mochi from mochimasu.
Perfect. And the accepting reply, Ja arigatou gozaimasu, well then thank you very much.
Clearly implies they accepted the offer.
Exactly. It perfectly illustrates this shall I help you usage in a natural, common situation. Shows consideration beautifully. Okay, now let's just quickly touch on some essential vocabulary from Lesson 6. These words really support the grammar points we've discussed, and then we'll look at a crucial little particle too.
Sounds good. Vocab first.
Right. When we look at nouns, we have words like chi, nimotsu, which means baggage or just stuff. Pasokon, the common word for personal computer. Shawa, shower. Ik, air conditioner.
Lots of loanwords there.
Yeah, quite a few. Then denki, meaning electricity, or often just light. Maro, window. Densha, train. Kuni, country. Then time words, konsu, this week. Rashu, next week. Le trainen, next year. And yoru, night.
Those are all super high-frequency words, things you'd use every day.
Absolutely. They allow you to build much richer sentences using your new T-form skills. For instance, think about how you might say, please turn on the air conditioner using what we just learned.
Ikon tsukete kudasai.
Perfect. Ikon o tsukete kudasai.
See? Combining new vocab and grammar.
Okay, verbs next. Let's break them down by type again, like the lesson does. You verbs first.
Right. For you verbs, or godan, we have ur, asubu, to play or spend time. To hurry, ikaisu, to return something, like a book. Shunu, to die again, less frequent, but good for conjugation practice.
Suaru, to sit. Tatsu, to stand. Taogosu, to smoke cigarettes, where su is the verb to smoke or inhale. To use the plaiko to help. To enter, remember that sneaky godan.
Got it. Haruhet?
Exactly. To carry or hold. And in yasumu, to be absent or to rest.
It's a great exercise, actually, to try and mentally conjugate each of those to the T form as you hear them. Asubu, asonde, isogu, isode.
Absolutely. Active recall. Okay, moving to ru verbs, or ichidan, we have aro, to open, hashimaro, to close, to teach or tell, agaru, to forget or sometimes leave behind, arichu, to take a shower, like in waniza, and ginata marjalada, and sukuru, to turn on, like the light or AC.
Okay, and the irregulars for this lesson.
Right. Kuru kuru, to come, kite. Chin suru, to do, shite. Then compound verbs using suru and kuru, denwa suru, to call, which is just denwa, telephone, plus suru, to do. So its te form is denwa shite.
Makes sense.
And motikuru, to bring a thing, literally carry and come. Matsu's te form mote plus kuru's te form kite. Well, used with kuru itself here.
So mate kuru.
Yes. And mochirete kuru, to bring a person, literally take along and come, from chururu.
Ah, okay. So one for things, one for people.
Exactly. And these last two really show how the T form is often combined with other verbs to create new compound meanings. It just reinforces its incredible versatility. Imagine using new vocab, the compound verb, and the shall I structure.
All tied together.
We also got some incredibly useful expressions and adverbs in this lesson, too. Definitely. There's atod, meaning later. Sugu, right away. Ipuri, slowly or leisurely, such a nice word. Yukuri.
Yeah, I like that one.
Dise hontu desu ka? Really? And kuku, foreign country. These little words are super helpful for everyday conversation and for putting the T form into action in real sentences.
Like if you want someone to take their time eating.
Exactly.
Ah.
Yukuri tabete udase? Please eat slowly.
Perfect. Okay, beyond the main vocab, you mentioned a crucial particle.
Yes, the particle. This little particle functions as to or as well, and it's quite simple once you get its placement right.
Okay, what's the key?
Crucially, it always comes after the noun or pronoun that it's comparing or emphasizing. It doesn't go at the start of the sentence like also sometimes does in English. It attaches to the thing that is also true.
Right, so it's most commonly used for me too, isn't it?
Exactly. If someone says they enjoyed something or they like pizza, you can simply say watashi mo if you identify as female, or boku mo if you identify as male, to mean me too or I too.
A very common, very natural way to agree or share an experience.
Super common. And we saw this in the dialogue, remember? Someone used wokumo in response to enjoying something, just a simple me too about whatever they were discussing.
Got it. Now, there's an important nuance here, right, about what you can compare.
Yes, an important distinction. Cannot be used to compare two things that are not the same in terms of direct equivalency or shared characteristic.
What do you mean?
Okay, so in English, you might say, I'm a student, I am also tall. You're stating two different facts about yourself.
Right.
In Japanese, you could not use fru in that second sentence because being a student and being tall aren't the same kind of characteristic being applied to multiple subjects.
Oh, I see.
It is specifically for when you are saying X is Y and Z is also Y, or I like coffee and she also likes coffee. It's about adding another instance of the same thing or characteristic being true for someone or something else.
So if my friend says, Cheroju, watashi wa chu ga suki desu, I like coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like coffee. I'd say, watashi wa shuki desu, I also like it.
Or just exactly. Watashi mo. The mo attaches to watashi because I share the characteristic of liking coffee.
That distinction is crucial for getting it right. It's not just a general also, but a specific this too or me too in a shared context.
Precisely. Hashtag tag tag outro.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, as you keep going on your Japanese journey? We've taken a really comprehensive deep dive into Genki Lesson 6 today,
You sure have.
and hopefully shown how the T form is just so much more than another conjugation to memorize. It truly is this powerful, incredibly versatile tool.
Yeah, for expressing such a wide range of intentions, connecting ideas so smoothly, adding real flow to your Japanese sentences.
Absolutely. And it's completely understandable if the T form initially felt like hitting that wall we talked about.
Oh yeah, it happens. Those multiple conjugation rules for U verbs, especially the Tate and Indi patterns, they can seem pretty daunting at first glance.
Definitely. But remember, it's sheer omnipresence. How often it appears in spoken and written Japanese. This isn't some niche grammar point you can kind of skip over.
No way, it's everywhere, and pretty much every conversation you'll have or listen to, and it forms the basis for so many more advanced structures down the line.
And that's really the key to mastering it, isn't it? True fluency with the T form, like so much of language learning, comes not just from, drilling rules and conjugation charts.
So that helps initially.
It does. But real mastery comes from constant exposure, active practice, and genuine immersion.
The more you hear it in Japanese music, anime, dramas, conversations, the more you actually use it yourself when you speak or write.
Even in simple sentences.
Exactly. And the more you just immerse yourself in situations where it's used naturally, the more right it will just start to sound to you.
You start to develop an intuition for it.
Precisely. It moves from being this complex set of rules you have to consciously think about to becoming an intuitive, almost automatic part of your language toolbox.
Right.
Try conjugating verbs while you're walking, Listen specifically for the T form in your favorite J-pop or anime theme songs. Actively try to create simple sentences using these new patterns every single day.
Little and often.
It really works, and eventually it'll start to feel wrong when you accidentally try to conjugate a verb incorrectly. Your brain kind of catches up, instinctively recognizing that what you just said isn't something you're used to hearing.
That's the goal.
So keep practicing, keep listening, keep interacting with the language. That initial wall will soon become an open door. A door to much richer, more natural, and definitely more fluent understanding and expression in Japanese. Embrace the process, be patient with yourself, definitely, and celebrate every time you correctly use this incredibly powerful form.
Absolutely. So our final thought for you today is this. The T form might be a foundational challenge. It demands your attention, your persistence, but it's an investment that pays off exponentially. It opens up this vast landscape of expression.
It really does.
Don't be discouraged if it takes a little longer to click than maybe some previous lessons did.
Yeah.
Embrace that process. Trust that consistent exposure will build your intuition, and just know that every correctly conjugated T form, every polite request you make, every sequence you describe, it's a tangible step closer to true fluency.
Well said.
Now go forth and conjugate. Request, sequence, permit, prohibit, explain, and offer help with confidence.